extra appropriate with our guest today. We are here for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. My name is TJ Zwarich, ready to talk episode 7 of Ahsoka. No Garrett with us today, but joined as always with my man Adam. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. As you can recall, last week I was in a little bit of a rut, and then I came on here and, reminded myself and also the audience, to try to, when you're in one of these kind of moments, to try and always stay positive and remind yourself that these things are never permanent. They're only temporary. And as is rarely the case, I ended up being right because I feel much, much better this week. And I am a little bummed out, admittedly, that we only have 2 more weeks left, counting this week, to talk about this show. But I'm going to take advantage of the time we do have left, and I'm so excited to talk about this penultimate with y'all.
We're going to have to do some serious figuring out of what we're going to do next week because we have the Ahsoka finale on Tuesday and then the Loki premiere on Thursday. But we'll worry about next week when it comes. We have a very exciting guest this week, co-host of the Phase Zero podcast from comicbook.com and also co-host of the Love in the Time of Hydra podcast, Jamie Jirak. How you doing?
Hello, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
We are very, very excited to have you on. So before we even dive into this, we, of course, the Agents of Fandom, got our name from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's where it came from. And now you are hosting a 10-year anniversary Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I'd love to. So it's for the 10th anniversary, which just happened on Sunday. It's crazy that this show has been around for 10 years. So the concept of the podcast is my boyfriend Tony has never seen the show. So we are watching every episode on its 10th anniversary, which means if we're doing it right, this podcast will last 7 years. And I'm really excited about that prospect because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is, it's my fandom. It's kind of the reason why I am where I am in my career. I moderated the 100th episode panel, and that really launched me to where I am today. And because of that, I have really high hopes that we're going to have juicy guests on this podcast. Right now, the SAG strike's still happening, so I haven't reached out to anybody. But we're really excited. We have a lot of fun ideas. It's nice to be on a podcast that I can control myself. So I have plans to read some erotic fan fiction, get a little R-rated sometimes.
You don't have no Jim Viscardi in the background saying, Jamie, you can't talk about this.
I'm in charge. So I am excited, but I will say, it's okay on this podcast, but I have to, I can't talk about one podcast on the other podcast. I have to keep them very separate. But this is like a third party podcast. So I think it's okay that I say that I do both.
Heck yeah, we love Phase Zero, and I know we're gonna definitely love in the Time of Hydra as well. I mean, especially until the SAG strike ends. If you ever need a guest, I'm available.
You're on my list. Don't worry.
Even if I'm not available, I'll be available. I've
got you on the list for the 2024 lineup. Don't worry.
Heck yes, very incredibly excited about that one. But we're here to talk Star Wars right now. And before we even dive into Ahsoka Episode 7, Jamie, I'm going to keep it with you because you just finished Rebels, yesterday.
Literally yesterday. So you invited me on the pod earlier in the Ahsoka season, and I was like, I do not want to talk about Ahsoka publicly until I watch Rebels. I wanted to feel more complete. As you can see behind me, I am a huge Star Wars fan. I have been a huge Star Wars fan since my whole life, but I've never been into animation. I could not get through Clone Wars. We've talked about this. It took me 3 years to watch 2 seasons of Clone Wars. It took me less than 3 months to watch all of Rebels. I loved Rebels, and I will go back to Clone Wars. I know. But and it reminded me of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it's like that found family going on adventures. I loved it. The whole thing, and it's making me like Ahsoka more. I think without Rebels, I wouldn't care nearly as much about what was going on in Ahsoka. So I'm glad I finished it. I really loved it. There's some beautiful stuff that happens in that show. I can't believe I didn't know that Obi-Wan kills Darth Maul twice. I can't believe I didn't know that. I have a tattoo of them both. I literally have a tattoo, and I didn't know that. I'm such a fake fan.
Such a weird moment too, when it's just he dispatches him so easily, and then you just can't help but sense that small amount of brotherhood between them of we actually were thwarted by the same people, and maybe this guy can avenge us. And it's such a beautiful moment, and you're absolutely right. It enhances Ahsoka so much. Shout out to everyone live on Twitch with us right now. You get to see these wonderful backgrounds we got going. Jamie's got tons of Star Wars. I got Thrawn and Ahsoka right here. Adam's got some beautiful posters. And if you're watching us on YouTube after the fact, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Make sure you subscribe to the Agents of Fandom wherever you get your podcasts. And let's start diving into episode 7 of Ahsoka. Adam, what did you think? Because I enjoyed this one quite a bit.
So I was just really nervous for you to even ask me this question because, I've really, really enjoyed the last 3 to 4 episodes. And when I finished this episode up, I was not underwhelmed, but just whelmed. Like I was like, okay, like that was fun. Like I enjoyed that. It was good. I wasn't blown away. And then I logged on to X, formerly known as Twitter, and it felt like I was alone in that boat because it seemed like everybody loved it just as much as they had the previous ones. Then I started seeing a few people come out of the weeds with some stuff. But we're going to get into a lot of this later. I know I'm not gonna jump the gun and get ahead of anything right now. But I really, really enjoyed this episode. I know we're in this era of extremes and absolutes now, where you either really, really love something, and if you don't love it as much as everybody else did, then you're just a hater. And it's like I try to not operate in that same thing because although I didn't love this episode as much as like 4 and 5 and even really last week's, I still had a really, really good time, and I think it has a lot of fun to offer. But I do have some qualms, some nits to pick and stuff, and I'm sure we're going to get into that later.
I found it really felt like a classic Rebel episodes. It felt pretty short. I was on the edge of my seat throughout. I had butterflies throughout. I wanted more. So that would kind of be my one little qualm. But it did also kind of leave me longing for this to be a 23 episode season of just like, I could have, and we'll dive into this more later, but I could have just sat and watched Ezra and Sabine catch up for 2 full episodes. Like, just have them tell stories about what's been going on in the meantime for 2-3 episodes at a time. I would have loved that. Jamie, what did you think about episode 7?
I loved this episode, but I wonder if it's partly because I finished Rebels like an hour beforehand, and I think that might be part of it, because I'm somebody who, when I'm watching something that I've never seen, I don't touch my phone. I'm very much watching what I'm watching, but admittedly, a lot of Ahsoka, I've found myself like instinctively just looking at my phone, and that's rare, and I didn't do it this week, but maybe it was also because I knew I had to talk about it on a podcast, so I think there's like a couple factors that I'm really looking forward to going back and rewatching the whole show. I'll just say that, because it hasn't all super been for me, but this episode I really liked. One, there was just a lot of good fighting. I'm like, there's a lot of good lightsaber stuff, and that's for me, like, I want to watch people hit each other with sticks, and that's what we're getting in this episode. So, and I'm really excited to talk about Ezra. I'm really looking forward to us diving into that topic, because I think he is great, and I'm very interested to see how this is a penultimate. Like, oh my god, we're almost over. It doesn't feel like it. You're right. It does feel like this should be longer.
Garrett and I were texting a little bit about this. Like, I have no idea how this is going to end, and that's going to be kind of be our last topic of like, I really don't know what the resolution is going to be, which is exciting to me. I want to start with the court scene though, because Adam, this is something we've almost worried about all season in terms of, well, Mon Mothma and Hera. There's this side plot, like that's going to have to be dealt with. Is that going to take away from all of the rest of the stuff they're setting up? There's a lot of loose ends here. They dealt with it before the intro title card. And I actually just adored this scene. Like, I loved every second of it. Getting to see 3PO again, and just the way that he walks in, and Mon Mothma looks so genuinely excited to see him. I love the intro scene to this episode. What did you think about the side plot kind of being resolved in that way?
So I am glad that they kind of got that out of the way early, because like we talked about last week, it was one of those things, we're on this other planet in this other galaxy, and then it's like, oh, we're going to have to go back to this courtroom. That's kind of a bummer. But like, I was pleasantly surprised. Like, I actually really enjoyed this scene too. Admittedly, and this is also kind of a personal thing, I'm not going to tell anybody that they should be as, underwhelmed by that. Like when 3PO came in and was mentioning Leia, like I was almost more like, I was like confused than I was excited. Now I know like Hera fought through fought through the Empire and the rebellion and all that stuff, and she came out on the other side. So it's kind of understood that like she probably has a great relationship with Leia. And like I know Leia, if I'm not mistaken, shows up at the very end of Rebels or something, right? In like some
She
kind of
actually
scene, I believe.
she does throughout as well. She has a few times where
Okay.
before she's one of the people who has helped the rebel sex build by having her ships mistakenly stolen by rebels all the time. So she pops
You
up.
only see her once, though. I can attest this because I
Okay.
just
Yeah.
watched it all. She only shows up once, but her presence is felt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So that's like for me personally, it was one of those things where like I did enjoy it. I'm never going to advocate for not getting a layup or not getting 3PO. He's always hilarious. There's never a time where I'm going to talk about wanting to see less 3PO. But it was one of those things for me personally where I'm like, I get like the weight of what I'm supposed to be watching. Like we're supposed to know that Hera and Leia have this probably really developed and complex and intricate relationship because they fought together through the Empire and the Rebellion and all this kind of stuff. But like since I haven't seen it for me personally, like really at all, like it's just kind of one of those things that's supposed to be understood. That didn't resonate with me as like this big gasping moment, like, oh my God, Leia is here to save her. And now the performances in that scene were incredible. Like Genevieve O'Reilly is always incredible as Mon Mothma, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead has just been knocking it out of the park every single episode as Hera. It was like really cool to get to see all that kind of stuff, but I didn't really feel the weight of it as much as everybody else did. But I still think it was a really good scene. Despite my nitpicks, I still think it was a really good scene, and I enjoyed it.
Getting to hear them talk about Senator Organa as the leader of the Defense Council, and just for something about that, and like Hera being like, well, I'm a general now, so I get to do whatever the fuck I want. It gets me so excited after having seen them like struggle through so much of fighting the Empire. Now they're like, even though we know it goes back down, but it's like, yeah, they're on top right now. Talk your shit. Jamie, what did you think of the scene and the Leia references from 3PO?
Well, are they on top? Governments, man. They're just really frustrating. Like we know it's all gonna crumble again, like you said, but it's really frustrating to see how poorly they're handling things again. It's hard to watch. But I loved this because I, like you, I was not looking forward to the possibility of a CGI Leia construction. I hate that stuff very much. I think it's icky, especially when the actor has passed away. It makes me deeply uncomfortable. But so I think that they handled it perfectly because Anthony Daniels, he's gonna be voicing and doing 3PO business until the day he dies. Like, and I love that about him. He loves doing it. He's just, R2 and 3PO for a long time were the only characters who showed up in everything. Their streak finally ended, I think, with Solo. But it's just it's always right. It's to see 3PO in there. And I think it was the right way to handle it. Of course, it would have been nice in another world to have Leia, but that's just wouldn't make sense in the way time works in reality. I also, like Adam, I love Genevieve O'Reilly so much. Her journey of Mon Mothma has been so cool. Just to see her go from a cut scene, 15, 16 years ago. I don't know if that math was right. I think it's longer than that. Whatever 2005 was, to now and getting to star in Andor. My whole thing about that I'm really struggling with is that on Rebels, Mon Mothma has that really great moment where she goes public and quits the Empire, or not the Empire. She quits the Republic. She leaves the Senate, and we don't usually see repeated scenes in live action, but they're gonna have to show that in Andor. We're gonna have to see that happen in Andor because it's the most important thing she's ever done in her existence as a character. But I love this journey. I love that she's on Hera's side, even though she still has to play the politics. It's very clear she was so happy when C-3PO walked in there, and I love that. I love that female camaraderie. That other guy needs to be punched in the face. I already forgot his name because he's stuck.
Senator
The
Ziono.
worst.
He is the worst.
Classic man. But so it was fun to get a little sprinkle. I love my sprinkles.
And yeah, Senator Ziono was the worst. He did give a hilarious moment with the mere droid comment and C-3PO, a mere droid,
yes.
And Chop just getting pissed off in the background. I just love it so much. That's actually been another qualm of the show for me is I want more Chopper. Give me more Chopper. We've had hilarious...
And Zeb!
And yes,
Where is Zeb?
We got our first Zeb mention, his first
Not
Zeb
enough.
this episode, but yeah, still nothing. I still have I feel confident in my theory that I actually think Zeb is going to be a big part of the next season of The Mandalorian. But I would still love to see him in some capacity in this final episode, something like that. They referenced The Mandalorian in this episode, not just with Carson Teva being there, but he talks about what happened back on Mandalore with Moff Gideon. It was so cool getting to see sassy Hera just like talking back to Senator Ziono, and Mon Mothma just working her darndest to hold back that smile. And that scene also just gave us a wonderful, amazing quote that is so relevant in society, whether you want to look at it from a climate change perspective or a politics, however, and super relevant in Star Wars. And she says to him, "I don't know what frightens me more, the possibility of what might happen or your unwillingness to see it." And it's just such a powerful, incredible line that really embodies Hera's leadership. It doesn't matter to her who she's talking to. She's going to say what she thinks is right. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. I'm happy they wrapped up that little side story. And it brings us to Ahsoka and Huyang doing their Jonah story, hiding in a whale. And we got to see Anakin Skywalker once again. We get to see Hayden back. He's wearing the clone trooper armor. He's referencing the Clone Wars. He's referencing the prequels with I hope you train these forms more than I do. After Obi-Wan tells him, if you practice your forms more, you could rival Master Yoda. So just a beautiful scene. Adam, we kind of had a thought that we might get to see a little more Anakin. What did you think of the taste that we got?
I was really surprised. I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought we had seen the last of him, and like this scene doesn't really serve the overall story in any way, and I could not care less about that because it is always awesome to see Hayden as Anakin Skywalker, like even if it's just these little things like this. And I thought, even though it didn't fit the story, like that's the perfect way if you are going to bring him back to use him. Don't try to wedge him into this role where Ahsoka needs to go back to the world between worlds and get something from. Like then that just complicates everything. Like just having this right here, it was perfect. And it's like it's really disappointing because we've seen this scene in particular isn't disappointing, but like we've seen what 7, 8 seasons of Clone Wars where like these two are not really even together all that much. The war splits them apart throughout that show, and he doesn't really get to train her all that much. So like she's obviously had to go on and do much of this to complete her training after the fact with these hollow recordings and things like that. So it's a really good way to fill in and like develop their relationship a little bit more, even though obviously like Anakin is no longer around, so like they're not in that same stage. But it's like it's a nice connection for all of us that are fans of the Clone Wars and that kind of stuff to get to see them bond because we didn't get enough of it in that show. Despite them being like two of the central figures, they were split apart. So it's like it's really nice to get to see them form that bond and that connection a little bit more.
I saw a funny tweet that it was just essentially stating like, so Ahsoka has dozens of these videos of Anakin in his prime. She showed them to Luke, right? Like she showed them to Luke so he could see his dad as doing something pretty cool, and so he wasn't just building his Jedi temple from straight scratch, right? And that concept, that idea is pretty funny. We may have just, oh, there he is. Jamie, what did you think about the scene with Hayden back, and in general, what did you think of just Hayden being back in this show?
Okay, first, I have a question as someone who has not watched all of Clone Wars. Are these videos something that he did in that show, or is this the first time we've ever heard of this? Him leaving videos for her.
It showed it once in Rebels, and then it showed it a couple times in Clone Wars of just like the one of the very first times we meet Ahsoka, and they're traveling to fight Vader at the end of season 2, and she's watching a video, and Ezra steps in and goes, "That was my master."
Oh, okay, I remember now. I remember.
Yeah.
He was little. That was a difference.
Yeah.
He was a little guy, and now he's a big guy, and that's why I didn't connect.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes me feel better, and I'm glad I asked because a part of me is like, I wish we would just get Force Ghost Anakin once, because why would you insert him at the end of Return of the Jedi if you're never going to use him again as a Force Ghost? Like, what was we already know he doesn't look like old man Anakin for some reason that will never make sense, but like, I would like to see him as a Force Ghost at least once, but now that I know that there is a history with these video things, I feel better about it. I love Hayden Christensen. I love him as Anakin. I'm such a prequels girl. I have seen Revenge of the Sith more times than any human being should watch a movie. I love that movie so much. And so I'm just, yeah, like Adam said, I'm just happy to see him. Even if it like feels wedged in, like it doesn't really service the story anyway, I do not care. I am just giddy by his presence. I love that he gets this resurgence that, you know, all of us that loved him when we were kids are adults now. So we call the shots and we get to see him around again because we've always loved him. So I really appreciate that, and just, yeah, just having him around in general. And I will say the World Between Worlds episodes did make me want to go back and watch some more Clone Wars, although a lot of that they covered was stuff that I had seen, because like that first battle was early and I have seen the first 2 seasons. But so yeah, he great, love seeing him, would love just more of that. And I didn't think about the idea of her showing those videos to Luke. I really like that. That's a really nice thought. It makes me happy in my heart.
They the one piece that I did feel like it kind of added to the context of the story was just reaffirming for the people who haven't seen the animated stuff, especially the Clone Wars, the relationship between Hayden and Ahsoka, Anakin and Ahsoka, how much they meant to each other. And I think the more we get to see of that, the more that kind of affirms it for those who haven't seen the animation. And it also just, we got to really see, this is the Ahsoka we've been waiting for. This is the animated Ahsoka. Like, yes, we've known she has her trauma. It was understandable why she wasn't acting the same way as the old Ahsoka. It was never a question of why. It totally made sense. But that doesn't mean it's not more fun seeing her be confident, seeing her be trusting in the Force, be light on her feet, and just happy, essentially. And it's exciting to see. I thought this was a great Hu Yang episode. The David Tennant was really coming out in their conversations, and it was hilarious.
I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, the David's popping out this time.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you could really hear it. It was, I saw a couple clips of him and his co-star from Good Omens, and it was just like all over TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. And it was like a 10-minute clip of them arguing with each other. And just like getting really angry with each other, and that's what that reminded me of. It was that Ahsoka and him, like, it reminded me of those videos. And then we got a super cool space whale fight with the Purrgil just look awesome anytime we get to see them bounce in and out of hyperspace. Adam, what I want to bounce to Thrawn now, though, because this episode I feel like we really got to see more aspects of his calculated nature. We got to, like, every single time something was happening, it was almost like 10 episodes of Rebels worth of, oh yes, no, I'm going to let them do this because then I get to see how they do this. I'm going to let them do this so I get to see how they do this. I found it super interesting, his relationship to the Great Mothers, and how he's the boss. They're just there to be like, we are here to serve you, Grand Admiral Thrawn, which I found kind of crazy. I thought he was more of like almost at their level, and he was just like doing their bidding, and so that's why they were so fond of him. What did you think about his presence in this episode? Do you feel like it accurately depicted him as a villain in a short period of time?
Oh, 100%. Lars Mikkelsen has been incredible these last 2 episodes, and like, there's nobody else that they could have. I mean, like we talked about last week, you know, if they could do a little bit of work on the face to make him look a little bit more like his animated counterpart, you know, maybe. But it's like, there is nothing else in the performance itself and the voice that, like, anybody, as far as I'm concerned, could ask for, because he is just absolutely chewing up a single scene. And for him, Balin Skull for me are the two that when they're on this, because like Jamie mentioned this earlier, one of the things for me with this episode, one of the problems I have was, like, especially in the first half, I was getting pretty distracted and boring until we get to that first big fight with like Ezra and Sabine and them. But like, anytime Thrawn in particular or Balin are on screen, like, I'm completely locked in. But we have actually, as you bring up the Night Sisters, the Great Mothers, we've arrived at one of my nitpicks for this episode, which is like, why are they helping him? And I know we think like oftentimes people like to, you know, take a shit on flashbacks, like these flashback episodes near the end of seasons. But like I was really thinking about today after I rewatched this episode. I was like, would a flashback episode establishing like what happened when Thrawn and Ezra got here, how he got connected with them, and now maybe we get this in the next episode, and maybe I look like a fool for even bringing this up. That very well may be the case. Now that seems like a lot to also
Or
fit into next week.
or in the movie.
Yeah, and if we get it in the movie, that's fine. But then I still think like that's one of those things. I have a tough time like delaying something like that. Like personally, like when I'm wondering about this, I'm not the kind of person to buy into something that's like, oh well, this will probably be. I do the same thing with Marvel all the time, where I'm like, if I know we don't have to necessarily resolve everything all the time, but I don't like waiting like, oh well, this will be resolved in 3 or 4 movies from now, like that. Especially when it's these like singular little things like that. That really kind of bothers me. And maybe Thrawn and the Grey Mothers are going to be like a huge. I mean, I know Thrawn will be a huge part of the story overall, but it's like I know we take a shit on flashback episodes all the time, but like we still don't. And we're going to talk about Balin a little bit later too. But I really think a flashback episode. Maybe we just make this 9 episodes and we get some kind of flashback showing what happened to Thrawn and Ezra when they got to this planet, or as soon as they left, because we still don't know that. We still have no idea what happened as soon as they went into hyperspace with the Purgle. And I'm just like, I kept finding myself wondering, like, why are they helping him? And how did this relationship even come about? Because surely they want something out of it. My closest guess is he's probably promised them something when they get back to their other universe. And like, when they get back, I'm sure knowing Thrawn, maybe he'll deliver because he has like such respect for other people and their culture and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, I just don't like having all these questions. And some of these very well may be resolved in the final episode. But it just seems like a tall task for all of these things, like to tie all these threads together. Like I don't know. Maybe it may be a silly nitpick, but it's just something that I couldn't help but feeling like, especially watching this episode.
I'm never gonna say I don't want more. So like I would any more Ezra backstory, Thrawn backstory, any addition to them, I would love. I would also say I think this would make a phenomenal video game of just like Ezra as the protagonist, and you find so much more about Thrawn, and it's canon to the Star Wars universe, like the Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games are. I think that would be a super cool little addition. Jamie, what do you think about live action Thrawn's performance? Do you think they've been doing a good job of showing him to be as menacing as he is?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's the benefit of getting the actor who voiced the character to do it. I have an issue with some of the performances on this show because I do not think that they reflect the animated characters. There are some of them where I'm like, I just don't think this is the same character to me. And despite it's not like the acting is bad. I mean, or things like that. It's just I just don't. There's a disconnect for me. Having gotten into Rebels so recently, I'm just not feeling some of these casting choices. So, but some of them I am. It's a mixture. But so to get Lars in there is like, yes, it's him. That's the guy. I really want Gina Torres to show up at some point because I love Gina Torres, and she I think would be really cool to see. But anyway, not all voice actors are actors, like, you can't do that with everybody. I totally get that, but I do have some complaints in that regard. So Lars is just great to see. In terms of his look, it's hard with that, you're blue, it's hard. And I'm just grateful that he's not just like a CGI entity. He's, there's like makeup going on, and I appreciate that, and I'm pleased with that. And I gotta say, Adam, it didn't occur to me that I wanted to see what happened to them. I just I was not bothered by it, didn't think about it. But now that you said it, I was like, yeah, I would like to know what happened when they jumped into hyperspace. They had to have some kind of conflict. He was wrapped around the tentacles,
Right?
And, there it wasn't just like they couldn't have just poofed into different places and never see each other again.
Thank you.
So now you got me thinking about it.
The one and now maybe Jamie, you can help answer this question because you have watched it so recently. I'm like 6 episodes away of finishing another rewatch, so I feel like I would have seen this too, and I think I missed it, so I'm curious if it's somewhat of a plot hole. But it seems weird with Thrawn not really knowing who Ahsoka Tano is, and him having to find out about that through Morgan Elsbeth. It was really cool, him talking about Anakin after he figured out who she was, but it seemed weird that she didn't know. I guess she's Fulcrum before he comes into the equation in Rebels, and so they don't really interact.
My biggest surprise about watching Rebels is how much Ahsoka is not in that show. I mean, she straight up dies in the season 2 finale, and then she comes back once in World Between Worlds, which is the third to last episode. So, Thrawn doesn't show up till season 3, right? So they have no interaction at all until and even her one episode. So it did not surprise me. There was a second where I thought he was talking about Sabine, and I was like, I know you know Sabine because you collected her art. But then I realized that was not what he was talking about. I wish that had come up again. That's my favorite Thrawn detail, is that like he's a little bougie. Like, and he has a respect, like you said, he has respect for culture, and I like that he like displays Sabine's art around. I love that detail about him. It kind of reminds me of Black Mask in his just like he's a little gay is what I'm getting at. He's kind of like, I wouldn't be surprised if Thrawn was like Enoching on the side is all I'm gonna say.
Or Rook from Rebels. That guy's terrifying. I could see it. But it still gave a pretty cool moment of him going, like, as soon as he realizes that this was Anakin's Padawan, he's just like, well, shit, we're not gonna win this one. Pull back. Like, pull the hell back. Let's just watch, try and dictate her movements so that we're always a step ahead, because we're not gonna win a head-to-head battle. We need to just keep them as far away from us as we can so we can get the hell home. And it was kind of, I thought it was a really cool way of showcasing his talents. It was a fun, overarching aspect of the episode to know, like, Ahsoka's coming. As bad as this gets, Ahsoka's coming at some point. She's coming to save the day. One of the performances that I find has translated incredible to live action is Amon Esfandi as Ezra Bridger. This is Ezra. It's Space Jesus Ezra, but it's Ezra, and I was so happy to see more of him this episode. Before we even get to the action aspect of it, though, Adam, I want to talk about his chemistry with Sabine, because just like I said, I could have watched 2-3 episodes of them just catching up, but it was so awesome to see in their dialogue the chemistry, but then also in their action the chemistry of them fighting with each other, right like it was a Rebels episode.
Yeah, and it was so interesting to see them bicker back and forth, like especially when she first brings up that she's now Ahsoka's apprentice. And he's like, Ahsoka took me on as an apprentice. He's like, oh, really? Why? And then they immediately start going back and forth. I was like, oh, this is so them. They do this in every single Rebels episode. It's like a little bit of a misunderstanding, and then they just bicker the entire time. That was so them. But like, Amon Esfandi is incredible. Garrett and I were talking about this. That scene, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but when they all surround him and point the guns at him, and he's like, hey, maybe we can talk. Maybe you can take us as prisoners. I'm like watching it, and I'm like, that is exactly, like, I can literally just close my eyes and see that's exactly what animated Ezra would have done. I mean, I feel goofy now for like halfway through this season saying that he was one of my reservations as people that I was unsure could nail his character. And I don't even remember why I said that now, because I think he is like in that same category with Thrawn, despite being a different actor, like bringing a different actor to play him. He's absolutely incredible. I mean, and I couldn't ask for any more, but like, I'm with you that if they want to give me whatever happens to Sabine and Ezra after this, which I assume they're going to go home and there's, going to be all kinds of shenanigans going on, whether it's Ahsoka season 2 or your theories for the Mandalorian season 4, however they want to do it. If they want to give me spinoffs like surrounding any number and combination of these characters, I'm all for it, because I think particularly these two are doing a great job playing their animated counterparts.
Jamie, what did you think of his performance?
He's my favorite in terms of animated to live action casting. I don't know the actor. Amon, I just looked at his IMDb. I've seen him in one thing, and that was King Richard, and I do not remember who he plays. But so I was like, I don't know this guy. Let's see what he does. First of all, it is weird to be attracted to Ezra because like now he's an adult, and I'm like, oh, I have feelings for Ezra now, and I don't know, that's a little odd. Look at that.
This is Obi-Wan. Well, I have feelings for Sabine, so I don't judge you even a little bit.
He's an adult man now, and I want to add that he had, like, for somebody, he's been stranded I will say both Ahsoka and Sabine to me are too low energy, in my opinion. I'm like, okay, a lot has happened to them, but a lot's happened to Ezra, and he's still got some energy. That's why I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead's
Good
doing
point.
well, because Hera was always low energy, but they're just all so low energy, and that's not what their characters were like. So getting his performance in there as Ezra was to me such a refresh. He was so funny. I really believe this is what Ezra would be like now in this time, even though he's been so alone with these turtle people who I'm also obsessed with and really wanted turtle people for my shelf. I'm gonna need some merch of those Noti right now. But yeah, he so far is my favorite thing about the show.
And just like from his entrance of him being like, "Hey Sabine," like just that was Ezra, and then the way he fought, I found incredibly interesting because clear. I don't need it. I want to show off to you how much I've leveled up, so I don't need my lightsaber back. And he's force pushing. It's pretty incredible stuff. I was really hoping for like all of those troopers kind of came in on howlers. And so I was really hoping for Ezra to do like some kind of like deep breath, close his eyes, tap in with the howlers, and send all of them against him type of thing. All of them against them. I thought maybe he'd be just like super tuned into this world like he is with the Noti, with all the creatures. But this was still pretty damn cool. We got our very first Zeb mention. But the chemistry between Sabine and Ezra as they fought, as Ahsoka comes in, the Ezra-Ahsoka interaction, Adam, I loved all of it so much. It seemed like it was quick and I wanted more, like most of it, but the parts I got, like, I just loved every second.
Oh yeah, I mean the Ahsoka Ezra reunion. I've seen this episode twice. I watched it last night and I watched it again today. Just made me sob into a puddle both times. I don't know what it is about just like the way the music hits as soon as they hug each other and those smile on both of their faces. Like, oh, I don't even keep talking about it because I'm gonna tear up and get emotional thinking about it just now because that was like incredible. And then thinking about to what they said to each other in the world between worlds, where he's like, "When you get back, you come find me," and she's like, "I will." So then I guess all I could think about when they were like meeting up, I was like, oh, that's just like this is like a fulfilled promise. It's just like I actually felt more seeing this reunion today than I did like Ezra and Sabine last week, like personally. I mean, this really, really hit me. But as for the action too, I want to go into that a little bit. Like that was they did such a great job handling that. Like I was one of those people that really wanted to see Ezra see that moment where she throws him the lightsaber or whatever, and like he gets the music comes on and he just goes crazy with everything. But then it fit the situation and his character, like you guys were talking about. He's just like, no, I'm good. I don't need it. And then to get to see the same thing that happened in which one of the sequel movies was it? I can't even remember now, where they stop the lightsaber and you can see the kind of trail of it behind. That is like one of my favorite Star Wars. That's only happened 2 or 3 times in Star Wars.
Have we
It's something
seen
that
a light side character do that ever?
I don't think so, because I think Kylo Ren was the one that did it last time, wasn't it? He did it,
And Vader's done it
Rey's
too.
lightsaber. Right? Yeah, exactly.
And Vader did it too in Obi-Wan. He did it to Reva.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but the fight itself and all the kind of action set pieces and stuff were I really, really enjoyed. I know we're going to talk a little bit, I think, next about Baylan and Ahsoka. Their particular fight was great. I was a little bit confused because like when Baylan first ignites his lightsaber, it looked red to me, and then I was like, wait a minute, has he gone through some kind of like undertaking? And then as I watched it today, maybe this is just me, and maybe I do need to I was gonna say maybe I need to get my eyes checked. I definitely need to get my eyes checked, but it was one of those things where I'm watching and I'm like, it seems like some of these shots it looks bright red, and the others it looks like it's classic orange. Maybe that was just the lighting or whatever, or maybe I'm just completely tripping on that. And I know I just got way, way off topic. You asked me about Ezra, and I ended up talking about Baylan's lightsaber. I don't even really remember what the base question was, but I don't know. All the stuff at the end of this episode here, I really, really enjoyed. It was great.
Jamie, the action chemistry between Ezra and Sabine, watching them fight together, that was one of my favorite parts because they did it so well. It felt like a Rebels episode.
Yeah, I will say the reunion between first Ahsoka and Ezra was great because it was like the most emotion we've gotten from Rosario Dawson the whole show. I'm a Rosario Dawson fan. I want to put that out there. Death Proof is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I just feel like this performance has been flat, and that was the first moment where I was like, yeah, yeah, give me some emotion. I hate to talk negatively about her in any way because I really do think she's talented, but it just hasn't been connecting with me. And that was my favorite moment she's given, just that quick reunion. But him and Sabine, I agree, they they connected with their chemistry. While I also Natasha's performance isn't my favorite either, I do I want to bring up when because Adam said it earlier, the when he says, "Wait, what?" when she says that she's been training, because for for the past couple month or so with Sabine, a lot of people I've seen online being like, this doesn't make sense that she's training to be a Jedi. What are you talking about? She's not Force sensitive. And then I finished the show and I was like, Rebels literally ends with her going off to train with Ahsoka. What did you think they were going to do? And I like that she's not really Force sensitive because everyone has the Force. It doesn't matter. You can still train even if you I like all of that. But I like that they addressed it by Ezra being like, that's not a thing. That I really thought was a great moment. And that fight scene, I loved. I loved that Ezra was like, I don't need a lightsaber, thanks. But I also like that that Sabine didn't really whip out the lightsaber because I felt like she maybe was self-conscious and didn't want to see Ezra see her with his lightsaber. Like, he's seen her use the dark saber. But I thought that was really fun. I really enjoyed that whole fight scene and them all working together.
It was like almost like a little bit of high school reunion vibes where it's like you're seeing your crush for the first time in 10 years. It's like, I gotta make sure I don't do anything stupid. I gotta make sure I'm looking really, really good. And I love that dynamic between the two of them. Adam, it's now your time to talk about Baylan and Shin, because Ray Stevenson's performance as Baylan Skoll has been just so wildly incredible. This is obviously the least important aspect and the least important. It's not the reason, of course, like why it's sad that he's gone. There's so many more important reasons, but it is unfortunate that it kind of seems as though there was a great story here with this character that was going to be continuing to evolve in the future, and I don't know necessarily that we're going to get to see that now.
I hope we don't. I really personally don't want to see them recast this role and continue it. I mean, I have no idea how this is going to end. Now, we may be talking about this next week, and whatever happens, his character could die, and this whole conversation could be for nothing. But we've now arrived at one other biggest quote of this episode, which is not Ray Stevenson or his performance, because I think from the very first time we see him, he's been just absolutely magnificent. I just can't. Like I said, with him and Thawne, it's both. Every time Baylan Skoll opens his mouth, I don't even really understand what he's saying. Oftentimes.
Oh.
Are you back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
I saw a meme today that was like for Baylan Skoll was like draw 25 or give Shin a straight answer. And it was just Ray Stevenson holding like a handful of cards. And I was like, that's so true, because anytime Shin asks anything, he just gives this incredibly nuanced answer that I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you thinking that way? I need to know more about you. And I thought the thing that frustrated me so much, and I want to kick it back a little bit to the flashback stuff that I was talking about earlier. We know Ahsoka is like one of the most adept fighters ever. I mean, she handled Darth Maul swiftly in the end of the Clone Wars. I mean, she is like badass. She kicks ass. Like, she is as good as it gets with like the lightsaber and the Force. And she's fighting Baylan in this episode. And what does he say? You know you can't beat me. And she doesn't even say it. She's like, yeah, that may be the case. I'm like, okay. So clearly Baylan is him. Like, he has got some abilities of his own. What happened with him? I mean, obviously he knew Anakin. We know he mentioned Anakin, or they knew of each other. That's like, it's unbelievable to me. And it's maybe we get something in the finale too, but that just feels like at this point, they've missed their opportunity to elaborate on this character that, like, maybe we get it, but it's just, I don't feel like it's going to hit the same that if we would have gotten it, some of these like breadcrumb trails throughout, like history, like little pieces as to why he is the way that he is, because right now he's just so mysterious. And I like that because, like we've talked about in previous weeks, I do think Star Wars can get very one-dimensional with their ground level villains like this, and he is anything but one-dimensional. But it's just like, and maybe this is just me being selfish because I just want to see more of him, and I wouldn't be, even if I got more, maybe I wouldn't be happy. That's likely the case. But it just really does seem like we know nothing about his backstory at all. And I also was really confused as to why he left Shin. He just like completely, they just split up. And then he runs into Ahsoka and he's like, well, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting to see you here. And I was like, where were you going? What? This is just a dust, just like a rocky, dead planet. Like, what were you going to do here? Were you going back to Thrawn? This is another one of those cases where I just had so many questions circulating, and maybe these will all be answered next week, and I'll look like an idiot. That's likely the case. It's happened plenty of times before, but I don't know. I had a lot of problems with kind of the way that played out, despite still loving both of their performances and their characters. Over the moon about both of them. And nothing bad to say about either of the characters, but I just thought some of the choices that Filoni, or I can't remember who directed the show, made with them. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about it personally.
That's kind of what I meant, but I think maybe that was still going to be expanded upon more, but because of the early untimely passing of Ray Stevenson, they just might not be able to. Jamie, I won't ask you to theorize on where he was going. I'll save that because I've learned. I'm not going to say what's your crazy theory on this. I want to know. I want to know about what you think about Ray Stevens' performance. And like Adam said, we've seen a lot of kind of like one-dimensional Star Wars grunts of like, this is a bad guy you got to go through. This isn't that at all. There's so much to him. What have you thought about the performance and the character?
I mean, first of all, I want to say, like, Ray, it's so sad because you said it, like, not getting to see them continue a Star Wars character obviously isn't like the saddest part, but it is hard not to feel sad about it. It's the same thing with, I'm not a Tross hater by any means. I like it more than most people do, but it really breaks my heart to think that was supposed to be Carrie's movie, and instead it's just inserted shots from Force Awakens because she had passed away, and that hurts me, even though there are 10,000 sadder reasons why she's gone. It still hits me in the feels and the sadness that we didn't get what she deserved, and I feel like that's what's going to happen with Ray's character because yeah, I agree there's a lot more to learn, and he does feel like this complex. He doesn't feel like a bad guy to me. He's this gray area, and that's why I like the orange lightsabers. I really, really like that. I'm also obsessed with Shin. I love her so much, and it's not just because I'm deeply attracted to her, but that's a part of it.
It's a hot, evil, powerful woman. Of course you love her.
That's my type right there. But I can't. I'm like, I'm attracted to him and I'm attracted to her, and that's not what I took away from the show. But no, but I really like this character, and I am curious because I doubt if he died next week. Just like putting aside Ray's death in real life, if say Ray was still with us, if Balin died in the finale, I'd be pissed off. But now it's like, well, I guess I hate to say it doesn't matter, but I agree. Like recasting. It's really hard to say in those circumstances because maybe they'll recast him. I mean, we're getting Harrison Ford, in place of William Hurt, and there was a time where I would have said nobody could replace William Hurt, but then they get Harrison freaking Ford. So it's. I will hold off until I see the finale, but I do really like his character. It's complex. It's interesting. It's not, this somebody you got excited to see in Star Wars, and they were like, oh, that's what they did with them. That's what they did with Gwendolyn Christie. After I bought a Captain Phasma action figure before the movie even came out. Okay. So, it is nice to see a little bit of layered, and we'll just have to see. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen in this finale.
I think it's like you mentioned, like he is kind of existing in this gray area, and I think that's why he separated from Shin, is he knew like her path was the dark side, and that's not his, and we still don't know what his is. It seems something about breaking this cycle of war, and maybe that has something to do with the world between worlds. Maybe it has something to do with Night Sister magic, and that's why he wants this planet. I hope we get to find out a little bit more. I don't know that we will get to, but it has been intriguing. I think we're definitely going to get to see more of Shin Hati in the future, and that's kind of how this all comes together.
Sorry.
True, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's just like, I love all of those tired. I can fix her. Wired. Let her break me. And it's just so wildly accurate. But the one thing I don't know is whether it's the Balin stuff, or more specifically, how is everyone getting home? Because ideally, from a storytelling standpoint in the future, you'd think we would need Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka back in their own galaxy with their friends reuniting. You'd think we need Thrawn back in the galaxy as the heir to the Empire so he can return and start this next war so the First Order can rise. How is that going to happen? What is the conclusion that we're going to see in this final episode? How are they all going to return together? And if they're not returning together, how are they all going to get back? Are they not all going to get back? Are the three of our Sabine, Ezra, and Ahsoka going to have to start doing something in their own new galaxy, and maybe they meet Cal Kestis and then he comes to their galaxy with them? I don't know. Anything to get me some Cameron Monaghan in live action. But it's truly going to be wildly interesting as to how this is going to end. I'm so excited. Next week is just going to be an event. We have the Ahsoka finale on Tuesday. We have the Loki premiere on Thursday. Oh, it is an exciting, exciting time to be a fan of this stuff. Jamie, are you going to be in New York Comic Con?
I don't think so. I did. I know. It's right now we're at like a 20% of a maybe, because I had I went to Aaron's wedding, my co-host on Phase Zero, and we had a terrible spirit experience, and I got a credit, but the credit ends in November. So I did ask Jim. I was like, I could use this for New York Comic Con. He goes, oh, cool, good to know. And I at this point, I don't think I'm going, but it hasn't been a no yet. And I've never been to San Diego, but I lived in New York for 3 years, and so I've been to New York Comic Con a lot, and I love New York Comic Con. I had my best Agents of Shield con experience at New York Comic Con. I love it there. My favorite con photo with the cast of Angels from New York Comic Con. Just a lot of my memories. So I hope so, but I don't think so. Is the answer.
Well, I'd love it if we got to hang out, but if not, we're going to make this meetup happen eventually,
Yes.
one of the times when I'm in the United States. But like I said, we got so much exciting content coming next week with Loki and with the Ahsoka finale. I have so many interviews that are going to be dropping in the next couple of weeks. Nolan North, the voice of Nathan Drake from Uncharted, Kari Payton, the voice of Cyborg in Everything, and Aqualad in Young Justice. He's also Ezekiel in The Walking Dead. Talked to Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Power Ranger. We got, I'm not sure if it's Ryan or Aisha, but they have an interview with comic creator Tate Bromball, still coming out from Fan Expo Canada. I got a chance to have the first conversation with Amazing Spider-Man writer Zeb Wells since the infamous Kamala Khan death in Amazing Spider-Man episode 26. Number 26. So we talked about that, as well as artist Don McTeague. We got Toronto International Film Festival content, tons of reviews coming there. New York Film Festival content, tons of reviews coming there. Make sure you tune in to agentsofandom.com for all of that. Jamie, where can the people find you on socials? And give us one more plug for the new pod.
Oh yeah, let me tell you a couple things. So I'm at Jamie Jirak on Instagram, Letterboxd, and TikTok, and at Jamie Cinematics on Twitter. On Monday is the Loki launch event. They don't do premieres right now because of the strike. But at the launch event, I believe I'm going to be interviewing Christine Wada, the costume designer for Loki. So on comicbook.com, keep an eye out for that. Some fun stuff about those costumes are cool. So I'm really excited to talk to her. And then of course Monday night, view my TikTok because I'll be giving some Loki first reactions. But please check out Love in the Time of Hydra. #Lito, Litto. It's too long of a title to not give it an acronym. Also, that's the Shield way. It wouldn't feel right. So we're at LitoPod on Instagram, also on Twitter, but I'm mostly using Instagram. I've been trying to curate some fun stuff, so check it out. I actually, just before we dropped, I released a little clip of Tony reacting to Fitzsimmons. It's so funny to watch him have just from one episode thoughts that I can't believe I have to live my life for 7 years without him knowing what's gonna happen. I don't know. I think our relationship hangs in the balance.
I can't wait for when Hydra starts to be revealed.
Ooh, he's gonna love that. He's gonna love it. It's gonna be really fun. So yeah, check us out. Our first episode is up, and our second episode is live this Sunday, October 1st. We'll be on Twitch and YouTube at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Adam, I know you're stupidly busy right now, so I'm not going to press it in the near future, but this would be a perfect time to start Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It'd be a great reason to have some added excitement for it. We got so much coming up. Did I miss anything? Because I know like we just dropped a great top 10 Batman ranking from Mark as well. We got so much dropping right now.
Well, I don't, I'm not a fan of the self plug, but I did have a review of Gen V drop on agentsofandom.com today,
Yes.
which is absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait for the world to be introduced to the show because I think people are going to fall in love with it the same way and for so many of the same reasons that they fell in love with the boys. And also, I mean, like you already hit on everything pretty much, but I do have another review coming out later this week that I'm very excited for. Lessons in Chemistry, starring Brie Larson, coming to Apple TV Plus weeks. Full review of that also coming on Friday. Keep an eye out for that. But like I say all the time, just check the website every day because we've got something up there for everybody. We got everything that anybody could ever want. So just do yourself a favor and check it every day.
And more exclusive anime content coming from Crunchyroll as well. We just got approved for their premium list today, so we're going to hopefully be getting some exclusives, some first looks as announcements come. And speaking of New York Comic Con, I'm excited because there's a Digimon panel from Toei. There's a Dragon Ball panel where they're going to be doing a new trailer for something brand new that we don't know what it is yet. So I'm excited. I'm getting in my anime mode here as well, diving into it. On behalf of Adam, Ruben, behind the scenes, crushing it as always. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone in chat, thank you for hanging out. We will see you next week as we will be back talking Ahsoka, first reactions for Loki, breaking down the premiere of Loki. So much exciting content coming. As Adam said, Gen V is coming. It's constant. It's not stopping right now. Make sure you tune in. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.